Roger Green, host of the Surfing the Nash Tsunami podcast. Today we are offering 6 conversations from episode 43, our Career Week interviews with Agent Diagnostics CEO Rachel Zayas and Novo Nordisk International Vice President Michelle Long. My conversation with Michelle Long continues, shifting focus first to why she considers herself to have been naive about commercial life before she entered it, and then the traits and characteristics make an individual a good candidate to succeed and enjoy being in industry, or, for that matter, characteristics that suggest an individual might not enjoy it so much or do as well. We each think we know a lot about the jobs we do, or at least I hope we do, but we know far less about other jobs we might find intriguing and valuable, and exactly what makes the people with whom we interact good at what they do. These interviews with Rachel Zayas and Michelle Long provide the kind of in-depth view into other career possibilities that most of us rarely encounter in everyday life. I'm not looking for a job in either of these situations, but I feel I learned a tremendous amount from both of them. I'm confident you will as well. So just sit back, listen, learn, enjoy, and when you're done, join the dialogue in our LinkedIn discussion group. You said you were naive and that in academia you don't teach your trainees about this kind of stuff. Scroll back 3 years, and what do you wish you were imparting to your trainees at that point in time, based on what you know now?
Michelle Long.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, even just a general overview of like what these different functions are, within a pharma company. Like what is medical affairs? What is research and early development? What do they do? What does it look like there if you work in regulatory affairs? Or, I think my bias was that it's all commercial and that you have to have like a business degree in order to make a splash and to be seen as valuable. But now I see, I jokingly call it Novo Nordisk University. I mean, it is as rich a research environment that I have ever been in and I could ever dream of being in. I had no idea that that was the case before, 3 years ago, for sure. So I wish there was more opportunities. I mean, some companies actually have these opportunities where you can, do these sort of externship rotations. And I really wish I would have done it. Although, I wouldn't go back at all on my transition because I do think, having this solid base in academia was essential to my success. So I'm glad things worked out the way that they did, but I think it would have helped me be less nervous about making this change had I known more.
That's interesting. I listened to you say that, and the metaphor that came to mind was scuba diving. Do you dive?
I snorkel.
Okay, this is a little different. If I think, maybe not. If you scuba dive and you're out in the ocean on a choppy day and you come up, then the water will wash over you and you will be underwater again, and then you'll come up. And if you're underwater looking straight up, which I don't think you can do very much when you're snorkeling, or certainly not as much, you realize that when you're underwater, the surface is virtually a reflection or refraction, and you have no clue of what's going on in the air. And then when you're up in the air and you look down, you can see pattern, you can see things in the water. You're describing academia in a way that feels to me like being right under the surface and not having any clue of what's on the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I've interacted. I had industry grants. I had lots of interactions with industry, but then I really didn't understand how it worked. It also reminds me of the first day of medical school where the dean comes in and says, congratulations, you've just made a huge investment in a career that you have no idea about. And that's also how I felt when I took this job, because I said, I'm doing this, I had to tell all my colleagues and explain what I was doing. But even then I was like, I think it's this. Like I still didn't even have much of a clue as to what I was doing. And some people who knew a little bit more than I did were saying, well, it sounds like you're in this part of the company. And I'm like, maybe. Like, I really didn't even know, which is sort of funny looking back. It was a similar sort of leap of faith that I took.
What is it that would make one person in academia a really good candidate to go into commercial and be successful, and another one not so much? What would be the differences between those two people, or their two perspectives?
I think that it is challenging if you are really driven by seeing patients. That's what makes you happy as your primary thing that really gets you up every day. You're not going to be able to do that if you're in industry to the same extent that you did before. Now, for me personally, I was mostly pursuing a research career. I was 90% research funded. I had a half-day clinic and a half-day of procedures a week. So I had pretty minimal clinical time, and I'm actually still maintain a half-day patient panel at the hospital. So I still do that now moving forward, and you can arrange that potentially. I mean, you have to figure it out, but that was an option for me, and I really liked having that option. So that could be an issue. I think that if you're establishing yourself, it's better. For me, I was able to come into this position at a higher level, because I was well established already in the field. And so that also helped. It is a very collaborative team science type of environment. But that being said, you don't always get external credit for your ideas or contribution. So, you may be spending all day, every day working on a project, and this is how it is at a big pharma company. Like, you're probably not going to be first author on that because there are other people that will take that position. So you have to be, okay with that. I think that can be really challenging, especially when a lot of your pride that you've taken in academics is in your publications. So that is something that, you really need to consider, I think, when you're transitioning over as well.
So what is the psychic reward that you get being in industry that replaces the psychic reward you got by being first author?
The fact that you get to do so much so quickly. Now, my colleagues say, we don't move as fast as we want to. And I'm like, you have no idea. From my perspective, this is light speed. So that, to me, makes up for all of it. I talked to you about Caroline, I had rich mentors, and I saw how much joy they got out of my success. And I feel the same way now. It's almost like I have all these people around me that I'm, it's almost the whole therapy area I'm sort of mentoring. And if we're successful there, like, I'm happy. That was something I needed to really reflect on. For me, it is extremely personally satisfying doing this kind of work every day and having these interactions like I get to have now.
So that was the easy one. Is there anything you had to give up in the transition that you miss?
I guess before, I would write a lot of grants. I mean, that was a lot of what I was doing. And it's, as much as it's painful, it's also very fun because you get to propose things that are really innovative. You still get to do that. I mean, I guess that's a bad example because I still get to do that, but it's a little bit less so. Now people bring us their ideas and I help together shape it. And so I do sort of get that satisfaction. And then I've also been helping to drive some truly innovative things within our company. So I can't say that I'm missing that. It's hard. That's a hard one. I mean, and I still get to see patients. That also was super important to me and also helps me keep that identity and closeness. I think a lot of people would probably say the not seeing patients anymore. This is a big part of your training. And I feel very fortunate that I'm able to. And part of the reason why I'm able to is because I work for a European company and I'm based in the US. And so my afternoons tend to be very flexible. And so I can find the time to continue to, I actually have a volunteer position at the hospital. I've kept my academic title and I still have some fellows and PhD students that I mentor in that capacity. That might be more challenging if my company was based in the US, for example, and I have a full work week, then you'd have to really negotiate for that. But again, this was a learning from my mentor, Caroline Fox, who did just that. And she maintained her clinic in diabetes for many years into her transition into industry. So it is possible to do that.
First of all, this has been fantastic. Thank you very much. This is a picture people don't get to see very often.
And now, back to Roger.
We hope you've enjoyed this recording. If you have any questions or comments about the content of this conversation or the entire episode, please put them in the review section of the page from which you downloaded the conversation, or send an email to questions@surfingnash.com. We'll be back next week with a more typical tsunami episode, this one focusing on patient screening and women's health issues. Until then, stay safe, surf on. We'll see you on the podcast. Bye-bye now.